Darkness. That was all the galaxy knew in that forgotten corner of space. For centuries, silence had ruled between the dead stars, as if even time itself refused to pass there. But silence never lasts forever. It began with a scream, though not a human one. A trading outpost on the edge of Sector 9 sent out a desperate signal, short and broken. They came without warning of fire everywhere. No mercy. Then the message cut off. The attackers were not interested in conquest. They did not want resources. They wanted only to burn. Entire colonies vanished under waves of alien fire. Children, homes, ships, none were spared. The galaxy trembled as fleets of the Ashdar, a cruel and ancient alien race, tore through the stars like wildfire. They thought they were unstoppable. They thought no one would answer. They were wrong. Hidden in the shadow of a lifeless moon slept something older, something the galaxy had tried to forget. A warship, enormous and dark, its hull covered in dust and frozen stone. Most thought it was only a myth, a ghost ship from humanity's last war. But its name was still carved across its black steel. UES Nightborne. Inside, the ship was not dead. It was waiting. Deep within its iron heart, an ancient intelligence opened its eyes. A low hum moved through the corridors. Screens flickered. Lights blinked. The ship's AI, called Sentinel, spoke for the first time in centuries. Awakening protocol engaged. Sentinel scanned the stars. Flames. Destruction. The screams of humans carried across broken signals. The aliens were not just attacking, they were erasing. The machine did not hesitate. Its orders had been clear since the day it was built. Threat detected. Initiating crew revival. Rows of cryopods lined the hidden chamber, covered in ice and silence. One by one, the pods hissed and cracked open. Frost spilled onto the floor like smoke. The first man to open his eyes was tall, scarred, and built like a soldier from a legend. His name was Captain Eric Hale. At first, he did not remember who he was. His breath was heavy, his body cold as stone. But when he saw the insignia on his uniform, memories returned like fire. He remembered Earth's last days. He remembered the promise his people had made. If the galaxy dares to strike again, we will return. Eric stood, weak but unbroken. Around him, more pods opened. Men and women gasped for air, touching their faces as if waking from the longest dream in history. They were humanity's sleeping soldiers, kept alive for a day the galaxy prayed would never come. Status report, Eric demanded, his voice rough but strong. The ship answered. Captain Hale. Multiple human colonies destroyed. Alien fleets advancing. Probability of extinction. High. The captain closed his eyes, letting the weight of the words sink in. Then slowly he smiled, a grim, dangerous smile. So they woke us. Then they will learn why the galaxy feared our name. The crew stumbled into action, shaking off the frost of centuries. Engineers rushed to bring the engines to life. Sparks leapt as ancient wires carried power again. Weapons officers activated systems that had slept longer than any of them had lived. The Nightborne groaned as if stretching after a long, deep slumber. Outside, the alien fleets noticed the energy spike. Their commanders laughed. To them, it looked like a broken relic, a dead ship waking for its final breath. But the relic had teeth. In the command chamber, Captain Eric stood before a cracked screen showing enemy formations. They were countless, burning through human space with arrogance. They struck without warning, Eric said to his crew. His voice echoed through the chamber. Then we will strike back harder. They wanted fire. We'll give them a storm. The ship's engines roared. Rocks and dust fell away as the Nightborne pulled itself from the moon's shadow. For the first time in centuries, it flew. Its cannons, larger than city towers, glowed to life. Red light spilled across the black void. Aliens turned their ships, curious at first, until they saw the insignia burned into the Nightborne steel. A symbol the galaxy had tried to bury, but one that still made the oldest species shiver. The symbol of humanity. The first alien commander sneered and ordered his ships forward. To him, this was no threat, only prey. He was wrong. Inside, Sentinel announced. Primary cannon charged. Target locked. Eric raised his hand slowly, like a judge about to deliver a final sentence. The crew held their breath. Time itself seemed to freeze in that moment. Fire! The Nightborne's main gun unleashed a beam of light so bright it turned the dark into day. The nearest alien fleet did not even have time to scream. Ships melted, broke apart, and vanished into dust. One shot and hundreds of enemy vessels were gone. Silence followed. But this was not the calm of peace. It was the silence of terror. The aliens realized too late what they had done. They had woken the humans. Captain Eric's voice carried across the bridge. Cold, certain, unstoppable. This war begins now. The Nightborne had awakened, and the galaxy would never forget it again. The fire of battle still burned in the darkness of space. Alien wreckage drifted silently, glowing red as it cooled, the remains of those who had dared to underestimate the Nightborne. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy had seen the true fury of a human warship. But this was only the beginning. Inside the ship, silence filled the cryo chamber. Dozens of pods still stood closed, their glass frozen over, hiding the warriors within. Some had opened already, releasing soldiers who now worked with shaky hands to prepare the ship for war. Others still slept, their bodies untouched by time, waiting for the signal to rise. Sentinel, the ship's ancient AI, scanned the chamber. Its deep voice echoed through the halls. Crew revival, 37% complete. Vital signs stable. Psychological adjustment, pending. Captain Eric Hale stood among the waking crew, his face stern and unreadable. He had seen men and women stumbling out of their pods, eyes wide with fear and confusion. For many, the last memory was centuries old. A battlefield, a burning earth, a promise of vengeance. To wake now, in another age, was like being born again into a nightmare. One soldier, Lieutenant Kale, collapsed to the floor as his pod opened. His chest rose and fell in sharp gasps. Eric knelt beside him, gripping his shoulder. Breathe, soldier. You're alive. The war isn't over. Kale's eyes darted around, filled with panic. How long? Too long, Eric answered. But we are here now, and that is all that matters. The lieutenant's hands tightened into fists. Confusion faded, replaced with fire. That same fire burned in the eyes of every soldier who woke. They were no longer men and women from the past. They were giants returning to a galaxy that thought them extinct. In the command chamber, the officers gathered, their uniforms stiff with frost. Sentinel projected star maps above the table, showing red dots spreading across human colonies. Each dot marked another world under attack. Each dot marked lives already lost. Eric's voice cut through the silence. The aliens burn without warning. They kill without reason. Do you see this? He pointed at the glowing map. This is not just war. This is extermination. And we will answer it. Some soldiers shifted uncomfortably. They had only just woken from centuries of sleep. Their muscles ached, their minds still foggy. Yet the fire in Eric's words pulled them together. They were warriors, and this was the purpose for which they had been preserved. One young ensign, barely 20 when he entered the cryopod, finally spoke. Captain, what if there are no humans left to fight for? The room froze. The question echoed like a blade cutting through steel. Eric did not flinch. He met the boy's eyes and answered with a calm that felt heavier than anger. Then we fight for memory. We fight so the galaxy never forgets who we are. The silence that followed was thick with resolve. No one questioned him again. Engines thundered as the Nightborne powered deeper into human space. In the medbay, doctors woke more soldiers. In the armory, ancient weapons were pulled from lockers, polished and tested. Each rifle hummed with deadly energy, as if eager to be used again. Yet, even as the crew prepared, doubts lingered. These humans were ghosts from another time. Could they really stand against the vast alien fleets that now ruled the stars? Sentinel answered the unspoken question with cold calculation. Tactical assessment. Enemy fleets superior in number. Human advantage, fear factor. Galaxy remembers the Nightborne. Fear. It was a weapon sharper than steel. And the galaxy had not forgotten. Not completely. As the Nightborne advanced, rumors spread like wildfire. Alien traders whispered in panic. The humans. They're back. Fleets hesitated, councils argued, and commanders who had once laughed now spoke in hushed voices. The shadow of humanity was enough to make empires tremble. On the bridge, Captain Eric watched the stars roll by. His reflection in the glass was that of a man carrying the weight of all his kind. Behind him, the crew moved like a machine, falling into rhythm, their centuries-old training returning with every command. But the awakening was not complete. Sentinel's voice broke the moment. Captain, one chamber remains. Authorization required. Eric frowned. Show me. The AI revealed a sealed cryopod, larger than the rest, locked with codes buried deep in the ship's systems. A warning flashed on the screen. High-risk subject. Revival restricted. Eric's heart tightened. He remembered the stories. There were some warriors too dangerous, even for their own people. Soldiers who had gone beyond human limits. Experiments from the darkest days of Earth's wars. They had been locked away, never meant to wake again, unless humanity faced extinction. For a long time, Eric stared at the pod. The glass was thick with ice, but he could almost see a shadow inside. A soldier. A giant. A weapon. One of his officers spoke carefully. Captain, do we dare? Eric's jaw tightened. He thought of the burning colonies, of the screams echoing through the void. The aliens had shown no mercy. Humanity could not afford hesitation. He placed his hand on the panel. The system beeped, awaiting confirmation. Authorization. Captain Eric Hale, he said firmly. His voice did not waver. Wake them. The pod hissed. Steam poured across the floor. Slowly, the ice cracked, and the shadow inside began to move. The crew watched in silence, hearts pounding. They did not yet know what kind of warrior was about to open their eyes. Friend or monster, savior or curse, only one thing was certain. The giants of humanity were rising again. The Nightborne drifted through the void like a beast waking from its cage. Its engines growled with ancient power, shaking dust and stone from its hull. Inside, humans who had slept for centuries moved like soldiers reborn. Their hands steady now, their fear replaced with cold resolve. But outside, the galaxy laughed. The alien fleets were vast, covering the stars like a black tide. Their commanders saw the Nightborne's energy surge and dismissed it as nothing. To them, this was only an old relic, a forgotten ruin stumbling back into the light. They did not fear it. Not yet. In the command chamber, Captain Eric Hale stood before a glowing map. Red dots filled the screen, each one an alien vessel. They surrounded human colonies, strangling them in fire. Eric's jaw tightened as he studied their formation. They think we are weak, he said quietly, his voice calm but sharp. They think we are shadows. Then let us remind them what a human shadow means. His officers nodded. No one argued now. The time for questions had passed. The weapon awakens. Sentinel's voice cut through the chamber. Primary cannon charging. Auxiliary weapons online. Target selection available. The crew braced themselves as the ship's ancient systems came alive. Along the Nightborne spine, vast cannons glowed, building energy that hummed through the ship like thunder under their feet. Fighters were armed, torpedoes loaded. For centuries, these weapons had waited in silence. Now they hungered. Lieutenant Kale, still pale from cryosleep, tightened his hands over the targeting controls. His heart raced as the alien fleet drew nearer. Captain, they're not slowing down. Good, Eric replied. Let them come. The first contact. The aliens moved into formation, their ships sleek and curved, like blades of light. Their lead commander sent out a mocking broadcast. The screen flickered to life, showing a tall creature with skin like molten stone and eyes burning red. You crawl from your grave, humans? The alien sneered. We thought your kind gone. We will finish what time could not. Eric's face was calm, almost cold. "You burned without warning," he said. "Now feel the fire returned." He cut the channel before the alien could answer. "Fire!" Eric commanded. "Fire in the void." The Nightborne roared. Its primary cannon released a beam of white-hot energy, tearing through the void like a second sun. The nearest alien warships didn't even have time to move. They melted, split apart, and vanished into nothing. In a single shot, 100 ships were gone. The crew staggered from the force, the ship trembling as if it had awoken something even it could barely control. But Eric did not flinch. "Target the second fleet," he ordered. Missiles streaked into the black. Smaller cannons blazed. Alien destroyers exploded one by one, their flames painting the stars in red and orange. The alien commander's laughter was gone now. Panic spread through their channels. Ships pulled back, their neat formation shattering into chaos. The galaxy had not seen such destruction since the last great human war. Fear spreads. Across nearby systems, traders and smugglers caught fragments of the battle. They whispered across secret channels, voices trembling. "It's real. The humans are back. One ship, just one, and they're burning fleets. The Nightborne has awakened." The rumor spread faster than light. Alien councils who had once mocked humanity now sat in silence, dread crawling through their bones. If one ship could do this, how many more were waiting? The sleeping giant stirs further. Back on the Nightborne, soldiers cheered as the alien fleets broke apart. For the first time since waking, hope flickered in their eyes. But Captain Eric did not celebrate. His gaze was fixed on the screen, where countless more enemy markers lit up. The Ashdar had endless numbers, and this was only their first response. "This was nothing," he said quietly. "They will send more." Beside him, Sentinel's voice rumbled. "Enemy reinforcements incoming. Probability of counterattack, 94%. Recommendation: continue engagement. Instill fear." Eric's eyes hardened. Fear was their greatest weapon now. The galaxy had forgotten the terror of humanity. It was time to remind them. The unsealed pod. In the lower deck, the sealed cryopod hissed again. Steam curled along the floor. The figure inside stirred, pressing against the glass. The mysterious warrior, locked away as too dangerous, was waking. A medic shouted into the comms, "Captain, the restricted chamber. It's opening." Eric did not answer immediately. His eyes were still on the burning fleets outside. But deep in his chest, he knew this war could not be won by fear alone. They would need something greater, something even the humans themselves had feared. "Let it wake," Eric said at last. The pod cracked. A hand slammed against the glass, strong and scarred. The crew stepped back, eyes wide. The end of the beginning. Outside, the alien fleets regrouped, their commanders screaming in rage and fear. The Nightborne turned slowly, its massive hull gleaming with firelight. It was no longer a relic, no longer a myth. It was war itself, reborn. And this was only the first strike. Far across the stars, in the shining capital of the Galactic Council, the air was heavy with fear. The great chamber, carved from crystal and steel, usually rang with pride and arrogance. But on this day, silence pressed over every delegate like a storm. Holographic images floated in the center of the hall. They showed burning fleets, shattered warships, and one black vessel rising from the shadows like a ghost. The name echoed in every corner of the room, Nightborne. For centuries, the Council had spoken of humans as nothing more than a story to frighten children. They were gone, erased by time, destroyed by their own wars. The galaxy had laughed at the idea of their return. Now no one laughed. The Ashdar commander who survived the first strike fell to his knees before the Council. His armor was cracked, his voice trembling. "We thought it was dead. We thought it was just a ruin. But it destroyed 100 ships in a single breath. We were not ready." Gasps filled the chamber. Some alien leaders shouted in denial. "Impossible! A trick! Technology stolen from us. Humans cannot still exist." But the images did not lie. The wreckage of the Ashdar fleets, the fire in the stars. It was all real. At the head of the chamber sat the Supreme Chancellor, a being of stone-like skin and glowing eyes. His voice, usually steady, now wavered with doubt. If the humans are truly awake, then we face a threat greater than any war in our history. The weight of fear. The council erupted into chaos. Some demanded immediate retaliation. Others whispered of surrender before it was too late. Old memories returned. Stories passed down through generations about the last time humans had fought. They burned worlds to ash. One delegate whispered, her scaled hands trembling. They did not fight for victory, another said. They fought to erase their enemies. The chamber shook with arguments. Fear had entered the council like a poison, and it spread quickly. The message from the stars. As voices clashed, a new signal entered the chamber. A faint transmission, cracked with static, but the words were clear enough to freeze the blood of every leader present. This is Captain Eric Hale of the UES Nightborne. To those who hear my voice, know this: you struck without warning. You burned without mercy. Humanity has awakened, and we will return the fire. The signal cut, but the silence it left was heavier than any sound. The Chancellor lowered his head. They were not supposed to rise again, he whispered. Old secrets. A cloaked figure rose from the shadows of the chamber. He was old, older than any alien present. His face marked with deep lines. His voice rasped like sand on stone. I warned you, he said slowly. The humans were never gone. They were sleeping, waiting. The Nightborne was their promise. A promise of vengeance. The council turned on him with fury. Why did you not destroy them when you had the chance? Why did we not burn their last relics? The old figure lifted his eyes, glowing faintly. Because we feared them even in death. We thought silence was safer. We thought time would erase them. But now time has delivered them back. Panic and division. The council fractured. Some demanded every fleet be called to arms. Others argued that war against humans was madness. You cannot kill what does not fear death, one leader said, his voice shaking. The Ashdar delegation pounded their fists. We will not bow to ghosts, they shouted. We will finish what we began. But deep inside even they trembled. Their fleets had been humiliated. Entire armadas destroyed by one ship. If more humans were waiting, what hope was left? The Chancellor's dilemma. The Chancellor stood at last, his heavy frame towering over the chamber. His voice thundered, though cracks of fear still cut through it. If humanity has returned, then the galaxy stands at the edge of ruin. We must decide, do we unite against them, or do we surrender before their storm destroys us all? The chamber fell quiet. Every leader stared at one another, trapped between pride and terror. Whispers of a legend. Far above the chamber, in balconies reserved for historians, ancient records were whispered. Scrolls and tablets from forgotten wars were read once more. They spoke of humans who fought not for peace, not for glory, but for survival. They fought with a fire that turned even victory into fear. One line was repeated over and over, an old warning written in the ruins of burned worlds. Do not wake the humans. They never forget. They never forgive. The shadow of war. As the council argued, messages poured in from across the galaxy. Fleets destroyed. Colonies vanishing. Traitors whispering that more ships had awoken from the dark. The Chancellor gripped the edge of his throne, his voice low, almost to himself. If one ship can make us tremble, what happens if there are more? No one answered, but the silence was enough. The council, once the proud rulers of a galaxy, now sat under a single shadow. The shadow of humanity. The tremble before the storm. Outside the chamber, civilians whispered in fear. Across starports and markets, across ships and cities, the rumor grew. The humans are awake. The Nightborne has returned. The giants of war have risen. And with every whisper, the council's walls trembled a little more. Because deep down, every leader, every soldier, every citizen knew the truth. This was not the end of a war. This was the beginning. The Nightborne drifted through the battlefield, its hull scarred but unbroken. Alien wreckage floated around it, glowing faintly like dying embers. Inside, the crew worked tirelessly, bringing old systems back online, repairing engines, and preparing for the next wave. But deep within the ship, in a chamber sealed since the last Great War, something stirred. Sentinel, the ship's AI, had not spoken of it before. For centuries, the chamber had remained locked, hidden even from most of the crew. Only the highest commanders knew of its existence, and even they had sworn never to open it. Until now, the hidden door. Captain Eric Hale stood in a dim corridor, frost still clinging to the walls. Before him was a heavy door of black steel, marked with warnings in red letters. Restricted access. Use only in final war. His officers gathered behind him, their faces tense. Lieutenant Cale frowned, his voice low. Sir, we were told this chamber was never to be opened. That weapon, it wasn't meant for us. Eric's eyes narrowed. And yet here we are. Our colonies burn. Our people die. If the Council fears us, then let them fear more. We cannot fight endless fleets with bravery alone. The silence stretched. Finally, Eric placed his hand on the panel. The locks hissed, and the door slid open. A cold mist spilled out, curling across the floor. The weapon revealed. Inside was not a soldier, nor a simple cannon. It was something far worse. At the center of the chamber stood a machine, its design jagged and unnatural, pulsing faintly with red light. Around it, strange containers lined the walls, each filled with energy so unstable the air seemed to vibrate. Sentinel's voice echoed. Designation: Project Eclipse. Humanity's final creation. Classified as a planetary eraser. The crew froze. The name alone was enough to send chills through them. Lieutenant Cale whispered, "A weapon to destroy entire worlds?" "Yes," Sentinel confirmed. "One shot could erase life on a planet. Designed for use only if humanity faced extinction." The crew exchanged nervous glances. To carry such a weapon was terrifying. To use it was unthinkable. The burden of choice. Eric stepped closer, his eyes locked on the glowing machine. He remembered the oath sworn centuries ago. The words burned into every soldier's mind. We fight to survive, not to destroy. But the aliens had shown no mercy. They burned children, erased entire civilizations without warning. If humanity hesitated now, they would vanish forever. One officer broke the silence. "Captain, if we use this, we become the same as them." Eric turned sharply, his voice heavy with iron. "No, we become worse. But survival does not ask for kindness. Survival asks for strength." The crew lowered their eyes. The choice was no longer theirs. It was his. Sentinel's warning. "Activation requires dual command," Sentinel announced. "Captain authorization confirmed. Awaiting secondary command." The crew stared. To fire the weapon, 2 leaders had to agree, an old safeguard from the past. Eric looked around at his officers. "Who will stand with me?" he asked. No one spoke. Fear weighed heavier than loyalty. Finally, Lieutenant Cale stepped forward. His face was pale, his hands shaking, but his voice did not break. "I will," he said. Eric studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Then humanity will not fall." Together, they placed their hands on the control panel. The chamber shook as the weapon came alive, its red glow spreading through the ship like fire through veins. The galaxy reacts. Far away, alien scouts detected the surge. They sent messages across the stars, voices frantic with terror. "They've awakened something inside the Nightborne. The humans carry a weapon older than our empires. It can erase worlds." Fear spread faster than fleets. Alien commanders hesitated to engage. Councils trembled in silence. For the first time, the galaxy began to wonder. Had the humans prepared for this war all along? The first target. On the bridge, screens lit up with enemy signals. A vast alien fleet, larger than any seen before, was closing in. Dozens of flagships, thousands of smaller vessels, a storm of steel and fire. Sentinel calculated quickly. Probability of defeat without eclipse, 3%. Probability with eclipse, 76%. Eric stared at the red glow running through the ship. His jaw tightened. The weapon was ready. One shot, and the enemy's homeworld could be dust. But the question remained. Should he use it? The crew watched him, waiting for his decision. Their captain, their leader, the man carrying the weight of all humanity. The trembling silence. Eric's hand hovered over the final switch. He could feel the eyes of his ancestors in that moment. Their anger, their fear, their warning. To unleash this weapon was to break the last chain holding humanity back from becoming monsters themselves. "Sir," Kale said softly, "whatever you choose, we will follow." Eric closed his eyes. Outside, the alien fleet moved closer, their cannons glowing, ready to finish humanity once and for all. When he opened his eyes again, there was no hesitation left. "Then let them learn," he whispered. "Let them see what they woke." His hand pressed down. The Nightborne shuddered as Project Eclipse roared to life. Across the galaxy, alarms screamed. Alien leaders stood frozen, their eyes wide with horror. They had feared the humans' return. But this was something beyond fear. The forgotten weapon had awakened, and the galaxy itself trembled. The stars burned red. Where once there was silence, now the void roared with war. The Nightborne moved like a black titan through the battlefield, its cannons blazing, its engines shaking space itself. Alien fleets poured in from every corner, endless in number, filling the void with fire. But for every fleet that came, the Nightborne answered with fire greater still. The weapon unleashed. Deep inside the ship, Project Eclipse pulsed with crimson light. The forgotten weapon, once locked away in shame and fear, now roared like a heart of fire. Its power ran through every system, feeding the Nightborne with strength beyond anything the crew had known. On the bridge, Captain Eric Hale stood like a man carved from iron. His eyes were fixed on the burning map of enemy fleets. "Target the flagships," he ordered. "Cut off the head. Let the body scatter." Sentinel's voice rumbled. "Weapon charge complete. Firing sequence ready." Eric gave the command. "Release it." A beam of light erupted, wide and merciless. It tore through space, cutting across alien ships as if they were paper. Dozens of vessels vanished in seconds, their flames spreading like waves across the dark. For a moment, silence followed. Then screams filled the alien channels. Entire fleets began to break apart, commanders shouting in terror as they watched their armadas die. The inferno spreads. The battle was no longer a fight. It was an inferno. Alien destroyers rushed forward, firing blindly, desperate to crush the human ship. The Nightborne answered with precision. Cannons lit the void, fighters launched like swarms of steel hawks, and missiles ripped through enemy lines. Each explosion painted the stars in orange and gold, turning space itself into a battlefield of fire. Lieutenant Kale's voice shook as he worked the targeting systems. "Captain, I've never seen power like this. We're cutting through them like they're nothing." Eric's face remained cold. That is why the weapon was sealed. Power without limit is power that consumes. Remember that. The cost of power. As the Nightborne pushed forward, alarms blared inside the ship. Engineers shouted warnings. "Energy levels unstable. The eclipse is draining more than we can hold." Sentinel confirmed in its calm, merciless tone. "Sustained use will overload systems. Probability of self-destruction, 41% and rising." Eric's eyes narrowed. The weapon gave them victory, but it was also killing the ship. A choice hung before him. Destroy the enemy or survive long enough to fight again. His crew looked to him, fear in their eyes. He gave no answer yet. His silence was heavier than words. The galaxy watches. Across the stars, broadcasts carried the battle. Civilians, smugglers, even soldiers from other empires watched in horror as one human ship tore apart entire fleets. On alien worlds, people whispered in fear. The legends were true. The humans carry the fire of the end. This is not war. This is judgment. In the chambers of the Galactic Council, leaders trembled. Every new report was worse than the last. Fleets lost, planets undefended, soldiers fleeing. Humanity had been one ship, and yet that ship was enough to bring the galaxy to its knees. The enemy's desperation. The Ashdar, proud and merciless, now screamed in rage. Their supreme warlord ordered all fleets to converge. Thousands of ships formed a wall of fire, surrounding the Nightborne. "We will bury them in numbers," the warlord roared. The Nightborne did not turn away. Eric's voice rang clear. "Then let them come. We will burn our path through their bones." Fire against fire. The battle became a storm. The Nightborne unleashed Eclipse again, tearing entire wings of ships apart. His cannons fired until their barrels glowed white-hot. Fighters danced through enemy swarms, cutting them down like blades through grass. But the enemy's numbers were endless. The ship shuddered under heavy fire. Decks cracked, shields flared and broke. Alarms screamed in every corridor. Soldiers bled, engineers burned, but none faltered. On the bridge, Kale shouted over the chaos. "Captain, we can't hold forever." Eric's eyes burned with fury. "Then we do not hold. We strike until nothing is left to strike." The awakening of the giant. In the restricted chamber, the sealed pod finally shattered. Steam rolled out and a figure stepped forth, taller, stronger, scarred by experiments long ago. His eyes glowed faintly, his body built for war beyond human limits. The crew stared, stunned. This was not just a soldier. This was a living weapon. He looked at Eric and spoke with a voice like thunder. "You called me to war. Then let me fight." Eric met his gaze and nodded once. "Then fight, brother. The galaxy wanted to see monsters. Let us show them." The infernos roar. Together, humans and their awakened giant struck with fury. The Nightborne blazed through the storm, leaving nothing but wreckage in its path. Alien commanders screamed, fleets shattered, and the void became a graveyard. Yet even as victory burned before them, the cost grew heavier. Energy drained, systems failed, and the Eclipse pulsed dangerously, its core glowing brighter with every shot. Sentinel's voice echoed coldly, "Warning, weapon approaching meltdown. Continue firing, and we all burn." Eric looked at the flames outside, then at his crew. His hand hovered over the controls, his decision heavy as the stars themselves. "Do we burn with them?" he whispered. "Or do we endure for what comes next?" The crew held their breath. The galaxy waited. The Inferno War was not yet finished. The battlefield was silent at last. Where thousands of alien ships had once filled the void, now only wreckage drifted. Flames burned faintly across the broken hulls, glowing like dying stars. The Nightborne floated in the center of it all, wounded but still alive, its black steel marked with scars of war. Inside, the crew sat in silence. Their bodies were exhausted, their uniforms torn, their faces pale with strain. And yet, none of them looked away from the view before them. They had seen the impossible. One ship standing against an empire and surviving. But the war was not truly over. The aftermath. In the command chamber, alarms flickered weakly. Systems were damaged, power reserves low, weapons overheated. Engineers whispered about failing engines, about shields that might never rise again. Still, Captain Eric Hale stood tall. His gaze swept across the destruction outside. He saw the ruins of fleets, the silent corpses of ships, the emptiness left behind by fire. "We are not done," he said softly. "The galaxy must understand. They must never forget." Sentinel, the AI, flickered to life, its voice calm as ever. Communication channels restored. Broadcast capability available. The crew turned to their captain. They knew what he was about to do. Some felt pride. Some felt fear. All of them felt the weight of history. The broadcast. Eric stepped forward, his reflection dark in the cracked screen. He pressed his hand against the console. "Open the channel," he ordered. Across the galaxy, in starports and stations, in homes and council chambers, screens came alive. Traders, soldiers, rulers, and children, All turned as static cleared. And then they saw him, Captain Eric Hale, scarred and unbroken, standing on the bridge of the Nightborne. His voice, steady and cold, carried into every corner of the stars. "You struck first," he said. "You burned without warning. You killed without mercy." His words fell heavy, like stones in water. Every listener leaned closer, unable to look away. "And so we have returned. Humanity has awakened. Remember this, we do not forgive. We do not forget. We answer fire with fire. You wanted us gone. Instead, you woke us." The image flickered, but his voice grew sharper, like a blade cutting through the dark. "This is your warning. Leave our people. Leave our worlds. Or burn as they burned." The Council's fear. In the Galactic Council, the message echoed through the Great Chamber. Leaders who had once shouted with pride now sat frozen. The Chancellor gripped his throne, his eyes wide. Around him, whispers rose like waves. "They will not stop. They will destroy us all. They sound less like men, and more like gods of war." The Chancellor lowered his head. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy's rulers felt powerless. The alien people. Far from the Council, ordinary citizens heard the broadcast. On mining colonies, alien workers paused, their tools falling from their hands. On merchant ships, traders stared at one another in silence. Some felt anger, some felt awe, but most felt fear. Fear not of the Nightborne's guns, but of its certainty. Humans were not asking for peace. They were promising vengeance. And promises from humans were never broken. The awakening of legends. In quiet corners of the galaxy, old stories were told again. Elders spoke to children about the last human wars, about worlds turned to ash, about fleets erased in nights of fire. They whispered the warning that had been forgotten until now. Do not wake the humans. They never forget. They never forgive. The crew's resolve. Back on the Nightborne, silence filled the bridge after the broadcast ended. The crew stared at their captain, some with pride, others with fear. Lieutenant Kale finally spoke. "Sir, what if they come again? What if the entire galaxy unites against us?" Eric's eyes, cold and sharp, turned toward the stars. "Then let them. They will learn that humanity is not an enemy to fight. Humanity is the war itself." His words sent a shiver through the crew. They were tired, broken, yet they felt the truth of it. They were no longer just soldiers. They were the nightmare of the galaxy reborn. The final message. Sentinel's voice echoed through the chamber one last time. Broadcast complete. Galaxy-wide transmission successful. Humanity's return is known. Eric placed his hand on the console again. His voice low but firm, speaking almost to himself. "They thought time would erase us. But time is our ally. Time is our weapon. And now, the stars belong to us again. Across the stars. On every world, in every council, in every hidden corner of space, the same sentence passed from mouth to mouth, whispered like a prayer or a curse. The humans are awake. And with every whisper, the galaxy trembled a little more. Because they all knew the truth. The war had not ended. It had only begun.